I'm very happy to be here at SOMA. It's an amazing place. I am very happy that we have an exchange between Stanford and SOMA every year. SOMA is a partner to have a chance to have a fellowship for one of our students, as well as many other people who come from everywhere in the world. So I'm going to start with my forgeries, because that influence from my father is what affected. And one of my favorite artists from all times is Goya's, and his etchings about the disasters of war when Napoleon invaded Spain. And I was still in school in 1983 at the San Francisco Art Institute, and we studied history of printmaking, and I saw original prints by Goya, and I decided to do like a forgery of it. So I measure, a ruler, the size. I took notes. I was taking etching classes, and this was my first forgery. It's Ronald Reagan. This is when Ronald Reagan invaded Central America with Nicaragua. I was doing, when I moved to Berkeley, I was doing solidarity work with Nicaragua, and eventually Ronald Reagan was called himself a contra himself. And this etching by Goya has the word contra in it. It's called contra el bien general, or against the common good. So I thought that's perfect for it. And for me, this was like an editorial cartoon, not too different than the editorial cartooning I was doing for university newspapers or for the Electrical Workers Union in Mexico. So I didn't feel like making art. I just wanted to make a statement. And I took chances with it, and it grew up from this. I began to do more. It was like San Pietro. I did it for the thrills. So other things that began to influence me, the symbology of imperialism. When I was studying political economy at the University of Mexico, we studied a book that you might know, How to Read Donald Duck, by Ariel Dorfman and Armand Matelart. Actually, a friend of mine recently did an exhibition in Los Angeles based on that. And it's an analysis of Donald Duck as very symbolic of a dysfunctional American family, that there is no marriages, everybody's uncle or aunts, they're only nephews or nieces, if you recall all of that. There's racist stereotypes about many Latin American countries or African, so it's a very interesting book of analysis. If you haven't read it, you might want to read it. It's How to Read Donald Duck. It was published back in the 1970s. Anyway, so I found this picture with a Mickey Mouse gas mask design in the background. And if you haven't seen it, you could search for it online. I don't think that was ever done, mass-produced. It might be a collector's item now, but it might come handy these days, especially if you go to a demonstration. But anyways, these are more prints by Goya. So I just added my little character here with a gas mask. This for me like a yin and yang. You know, when you go to Disney World, it's like you read that sign at the entrance, "Welcome to the happiest place on earth." And for me, war is the unhappiest place on earth. Maybe together with the borderlands. But anyway, so this is my version of my yin and yang. And art as commodity and other things. So anyway, so I have done, I have a lot of images to show, so I'm gonna move a little fast. That's two of my favorite artists meeting each other, Goya and Posada. And most of these for me are like editorial cartooning. So I didn't want to make art, I wish I had been like Naranjo or Helio Flores when I was living here in Mexico, who were some of my favorite cartoonists. Another one, the Sleep of Reason Produces Monsters. The only thing is that here in Goya's times, owls and bats and cats are symbols of evil and scary things. But in today's times, these animals are endangered species. The tiger is almost extincted. Many other felines, many cats. The owls are endangered species. Even the bats. So I decided to make actual really scary things, like stealth bombers, F-16s, Tomahawk missiles, Apache helicopters, etc. And all of these, are from the late 90s, most of this work. I don't know if you ever saw the Teletubbies. There was the purple gay Teletubby. And Jerry Falwell and Jesse Helms protested the Teletubbies because of that, because they say children are going to be contaminated with gayness because these Teletubbies were like a bag. And so I decided to put these ones. On the left is Jesse Helms. He's the guy who basically killed the National Endowment for the Arts in the U.S. And Jerry Falwell, and they're giving each other a pedicure. They went a little too far with Inky Winky, I think was his name. Tinky Winky, thank you. See, we have Teletubby fans here. Then I'm going to move to another series of work. These were my versions of editorial cartoons. These are 7 feet by 7 feet, or about a little over 2 metros by 2 metros. And this was when Ronald Reagan was invading Central America. And this work is, I didn't want to make art again. I looked for the cheapest materials. So it's charcoal and pastel and paper, maybe $10 at the most. But somebody didn't like it. When I showed it the first time, it got vandalized. It got destroyed, but I did my forgery of the same drawing. So I did another version of that. So I have done quite a few of those charcoal drawings, again, like editorial cartoons. I did a tapestry based on that. I did a little religious dinosaur. And this one too, I made this one in 1998, is when Paradise arrived. And it's hard to see, but in the middle finger, it reads English only. And this is about colonialism and how Native Americans were displaced from their own land, and how also Mexicans were not originally immigrants to the United States. The United States immigrated to us. We didn't cross the border originally, the border crossed us. And it's very ironic that this situation is happening today, especially in times of xenophobia that are so intense. So in this case, I decided to make like an indigenous looking girl levitating magical heart, about to be flicked out of the context. But I could have done this drawing today. It's incredible. This was 1989. I wish things have changed today. If anything, things may be getting worse. Other undocumented immigrants who are incredibly creative are the Cubans. This is how Cubans have been crossing the ocean between Havana and Miami. And this was a GM truck that was stopped by guards and sunk. Even though there were museums in the US who wanted this piece, it would have been a great museum show. And these people were able to make this truck amphibious, and with the same engine, it was going through the ocean and arrived safely to Miami when the Coast Guard arrested everybody and sunk the place. So I made a little tribute to them. This one is called Illegal Aliens Guide to Critical Theory. This is a really huge painting, 80 inches by 120 inches, but more than 2 by 5 meters. So I decided to make money because money is going to be worthless soon. So $1 billion bill. So this is 10% tax-free. It's called the Unequal States of America Federal Economic Privilege Note. And this note should not be legal tender for corporations only, and so on. So I did it with a collaboration with Donald Farnsworth, a local artist from Magnolia Editions. So I began to do codices, more codices. This is like on a mate paper. All these are made on this indigenous paper from the Otomí culture in San Pablito now. But that's the same paper the Aztecs and the Mayans used for their codices. By the way, some of you might not know that Mexico had some of the largest library in the world and in the continent at the time the Spaniards arrived, the library of Texcoco, and that was destroyed completely by the conquistadores during the conquest of Mexico City. Thousands of books were burned to ashes. There is not a single pre-Columbian Aztec book that survived the fire. There are only 3 Mayan pre-Columbian books that survived the fire, and maybe a 4th one if the one in Mexico City is not a hoax. La historia la dicen los que ganan las guerras. So that's the lesson I get from the story of the destructions of the pre-Columbian books. So I decided, as an artist, I wanted to do my own version of pre-Columbian books. And I started in 1992 was my first book, and I have been doing books ever since, on a mate paper, all of them. This one is a book done by Otomi Indians for a catechism. And it had originally religious Catholic signs. I changed it to contemporary ones, including a rat fink on the lower left corner with this card culture from the 1970s that I kind of was following when I was living even here in Mexico. Anyway, I'm going to show you several of my books. Sometimes I hide the eyes of people because people don't see each other behind borders. And this one is about borders. And I had done quite a few. This one is Dystopian Cannibals, with the stereotypes of characters in both sides of the walls. Some of them you might recognize, like former President Obama, or Van Gogh, and so on. So I have done quite a few. Sometimes I do paintings, like this one, appropriating Ellsworth Kelly on the left, or different appropriations from different artists. Illegal Aliens Guide to Macroeconomic Theory, and this is Roy Lichtenstein and Van Gogh, and a stereotype that I got from a book that I'm gonna show you. I live in this place too for a few months in Giverny. That changed my perspective too about the world and borders. And I decided to make my own, what I call reverse modernism. You know, like Picasso and many modernist artists used to appropriate African art, and they loved it. I'm not saying they were nasty. They loved African art, just like I love Monet. But they appropriated that. These artists like Frank Lloyd Wright, who appropriated Mayan architecture to do some of his houses in Los Angeles. That's an American photographer who did staged photographs of Native Americans, Edward C. Curtis. So I made my version of it with an ad for iPad and Cartier-Bresson, the little guy jumping over. The same one with this is an enlarged version of that. And Jacques Cocteau is the guy with the Mayan head, by the way. He's not originally in that picture. That's a picture by Irving Penn. So more appropriation, somewhere yesterday, which is the opposite of meditation. Meditation is here and now. This one is somewhere yesterday. There is like pre-Columbian designs behind Mondrian. It's hard to see, but you might see a little feather snake there. Goya is another appropriation I did with this, robotic bomber. So I'm going to end up with the recent work I have done. I'm still working on some of this. I'm operating more of James Ensor. This one is Millionaires and Billionaires. The millionaires are the tiny little skulls around. The billionaires are the big. You know, with the incredible income inequality today is so huge that even among the 1% of the richest people in the world, the difference between the 1% of the 1% is gigantic. It's almost like anybody could be a millionaire now. Billionaires are like 500 something in the US or something, and they own, together with the 1%, about 50% of the wealth of the planet. You know, it's just unbelievable. So that's what I'm doing with these little paintings lately, and that's my destruction of all the stereotypes. And this is what is working out the 7 capital sins. This one is greed. It looks like gluttony, but maybe greed and gluttony could be one thing together, but this is greed. And again, I have little eyes falling up. This one is pride with Snow White. Basically, what supremacism looks like to me. I haven't. This is just the start of one. It's going to be watching Fox News, which I'm going to call Fix News, on the left. See, this one is hate. Hate's on the upper right corner, and I'm sick and tired of painting Trump, so I decided not to put him anymore. And this one I'm painting with silver paint. I am you. I think when the times are horrible and look hopeless, that's when sometimes the best of people also come true. And that's what gives energy to my art. And that's what I wanted to present to you today. Thank you for listening to such a long story. This is the end of my talk.